Ukraine is sending a signal that this is now the primary weapon of the battlefield, and that it has the power to hit Russia with them, irrespective of what support it has from the West.
The news that broke really very early this morning, we were in the office before the programme had started, that this biggest Ukrainian drone attack on Moscow since Russia's invasion. Now, up to 3 people have been killed in it. It seems to have hit quite a lot of infrastructure across the Russian capital. It seems to be a major statement also of purpose from the Ukrainians as they attend peace talks with the Americans in Saudi Arabia this morning. Meanwhile, the head of the British Army is speaking to his counterparts in Paris about what a peacekeeping force of the coalition of the willing might look like. So if you can try and picture all of those things in your mind, drone strike in Moscow, peace talks in Saudi Arabia, and military summit in Paris. That's just 3 things that are happening all at the same time, pointing to actually the significance of the moment, I suspect, in global history. Catherine Philp is the Times' World Affairs editor. She's been guiding us through the diplomatic and other twists and turns in the past few extraordinary weeks, and she's with us again this morning. Catherine, morning to you.
Good morning, Stig.
Shall we start with... Well, let's start with the drone attack, because I think it's the latest news. And someone got in touch with us and said, well, why would Ukraine, this close potentially to peace, want to strike at Moscow? But I suspect the argument would be Ukraine needs to show that they're not going to go quietly into the night with all these other people wanting to settle the sovereignty of their country around them.
Great evocation there of Dylan Thomas, Stig, so early in the morning. Yes, this is about the talks. This is why this is happening. Firstly, let's just set some parameters around this, geographical ones. Moscow is an oblast or a province of Russia, not just its capital city. So this is not as if the denizens of the capital woke up as could, you know, the residents of London and find a swarm of drones above them. This is over a larger area than simply saying Moscow would suggest. Nonetheless, it is very much a statement of strength from Ukraine before these peace talks begin. And it is a significant one for 2 reasons, I think. One is that Ukraine's pitch at these talks is to put forward a proposal for an air and sea truce. So, and the cessation of aerial hostilities and hostilities at sea. Now, the sea, the naval component of that proposal is significant because Ukraine has absolutely hammered the Russian navy without having any navy of its own. So that would, and that's because of giving them freedom of navigation over the Black Sea. But when it comes to the air, Ukraine would like the air is clear of hostile fire so that its citizens, both those in the military and civilians, do not have to deal with punishing incoming Russian fire. What they have done this morning is prove that they can strike Russia even if US military aid were to continue to be suspended. And that's very important. So none of the things that hit or were launched at the Moscow region last night were armaments that came from the US or as far as we know, any Western partner. These were drones, and Ukraine is sending a signal that this is now the primary weapon of the battlefield, and that it has the power to hit Russia with them, irrespective of what support it has from the West.
Because the predominant narrative coming into Saudi Arabia, I suppose, when people are talking about it, is that Ukraine has to concede something. That, say they propose this ceasefire and a ceasefire is accepted, the next step feels like, at least coming from the American camp and, of course, the Russian camp, would be that then Ukraine concedes something. Ukraine has to concede the land that Russia has taken, or at least it's to abandon its attempt to regain that land. That feels like the next direction is some sort of concession from Ukraine. Is that right, do you think?
It is, but as we've, I think, discussed in days leading up to this, Russia hasn't been asked about concessions so far. So we're looking at those, and I think that that's what Ukraine is doing right now is to try and point out that Russia has something to lose if hostilities continue, and that it should give ground in some way. I think, yes, that obviously Ukraine is going to have to make concessions, but I think that's all we've ever heard about. We've never heard what the hell Russia is going to concede.
The other thing we heard an awful lot about is the mineral deal. I mean, is this some sort of Trumpian chimera? You know, is it actually real? Is a mineral deal? I mean, I'm sure something will get signed in the end because we've talked about it so often. But actually, is there anything substantial that it's going to mean, do you think?
I love the idea of a chimerical minerals deal. I mean, again, it could just be a signature on a piece of paper because nobody really knows, one, what's there, that the mineral mapping is so old that we don't know what's there. We have no idea who from the US side would be willing to come and commercially exploit those minerals. But it's totemic to President Trump.
Yeah.
He would like to, hold up that piece of paper with Zelensky's signature practically written in blood on it to, as he would say, prove he is not stupid and they are not being taken for a ride and they're getting something out of this and they're getting paid back. Trump will, provided that the US Constitution as it stands continues, he will be out of office by the time any of these minerals are extracted from Ukrainian soil. So this is really about him proving that, he's got something back.
And just finally, this summit in Paris to talk about European military armament and military ability, that would have to be a concession from Russia in the end. That we still don't know if Russia would accept European boots on the ground, and we don't entirely know how many European boots can be put on the ground, when they'd be put on the ground, what they'd be enforcing or not enforcing. So for all the talk of the last couple of weeks, we're not that much closer to any specific detail in a lot of these areas, Catherine.
Absolutely not. No, but I think it's crucial for Europe that they have to show that willing to President Trump. They have to show that they're there. And it's really one of their only ways of influencing the process as it goes forward is to say, we're standing here and we're willing not only to step up security of our continent for our own sakes, but if needed, to go into Ukraine with boots on the ground. That doesn't mean that anyone's going to accept their boots on the ground, but the fact that they show willing is absolutely critical for the balance of power and for the relationship between the US and Europe going forward.
Yeah, there's still an awful lot of George to be done, it strikes, as listening to that, I think, Catherine. Great to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining us as ever.
Cheers.
That's Catherine Philp, the Times' World Affairs editor. So much of this is about show and what it looks like and a sign of strength and a sign. We're not that much further on than we were 2 weeks ago, it feels to me. No, but a lot is happening this week. A lot of moving parts. And that silence usually means that there's a lot happening behind the scenes too. So it's something we'll keep coming back to throughout the week this week.